Yeah, we are
Anyways,
live.
let's go on there.
Who?
I said Claude to please invent like a 3-minute dance, and so it just created it interpreted a dance with like with the different variables of like move left, right, front, back, and different timings. So just going at it. I said start and end in the same place, and you have a 2 foot by 2 foot square, and then I calibrated the timing and the movement. So like I measured out, like I said, move forward for 1 second, and I said, okay, that's about 10 inches, and like, but something interesting is that there's right now each instruction that I give it has latency. So like it sends a message and it can only handle one message at a time. So if you want to be able to manage like a package of instructions, you have to change, I think, the firmware or the software. Um, I don't know, Anuraj, or if anybody else has run into that issue, but it can't do something smooth because it can only take one action at a time.
Yeah, so there could be a kind of a buffer where the commands get stored and then it's processed. Yeah, but that is all not done. And the we can all the motors have an encoder, so basically you can measure how much the robot has moved. But yeah, that is all on our to-do list. Still not done
Yeah.
yet.
I'm thinking
Venkat apparently is here, I think.
exactly.
Hello.
I
Sorry, I'm late. Messing with setting up my new phone. Anyway,
Rafa, can you have Claude interpret the dance? Explain what it was doing.
Yeah, I
What
can.
the basic concept was behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, the command that I sent was, this is the command that I sent it. And then it, the, like,
I think Nathan had tried something similar. He had so we had a session for this in the cap call, and then he had tried to give some dancing commands.
Okay, so here we have he's saying two-wheeled robots are very limited in how they can dance.
yeah. But the interesting thing was, again, it could interpret like the request.
Yeah,
And that's kind of cool because, you know, you can, the ability to hire a robot to dance, right, is like, is quite I find that intellectually interesting that you can do that, right? Like, which I think hints at where we're going to be.
And
I
right now, the movements are like artificially limited, right? It is
There
much
are
more.
Yeah, I mean, they're limited from the hardware, but they're also limited simply because the software is not taking full advantage of the hardware, right?
Even the firmware, like right now, I will kept it as 2 seconds of movement, but that doesn't need to be like that. It was just
That's right.
yeah.
So there's an entire like the next project I was gonna do, which chasing this like smooth dancing thing, was I was gonna try to solve the 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 ability of a robot to get like a packet to basically sequence instructions so they can get a stream of instructions, instead of one instruction execute, one instruction execute. I also wanted to stand up straight, which I need to sort out. But both of those are kind of like vibe coding projects. I think that Claude can probably solve at this point.
So there's really two completely different issues here. One is how to turn dance commands into something that is smoother dance. That's on a low level. That's when you stack them, sequence them, and do interpolation between them and so on, presumably on the robot. But maybe the more interesting one is what kind of services can the robot provide? And let me extend what you just said. I often ask ChatGPT to create an image which reflects an abstract concept. Okay, so and yeah, it can do that, and sometimes the image that it creates appears to reflect that abstract concept. Like creativity or intuition or whatever. And I'm just wondering out loud, when you do it by movement, is that just a different media or is it different internally? Because just imagine that the dancing robot is background, like background music, background dancers. If I take it a little bit to the extreme, if you have little drones flying over your head, but they're dancing, but they're
Yeah.
dancing in a dance that was created for the moment. So I think that's more powerful than text or an image created for the moment. And I'm wondering, what it's like and whether or not it could be a service. But then the service would be creating the dance and not providing a video of the robot half a continent away doing the dance.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at least on my side, the I feel like I need a couple things. So I do think that your initial what you said at the beginning, which is like what is a service? Like that needs to get done. I think that's I think that's really interesting. I have a call today with an engineering firm to ask him about their drone and data gathering stuff. Because
Mhm.
I'm trying to figure out um, what problems they're actually solving with data and what the limitations of the current data is. But yeah, chasing that question of like a single specific service, because I think even though you can have a marketplace for dancing robots, be like hire a robot to dance. I think more interesting, at least to my side, is hire a robot to do something that has like downstream impact somewhere else in some industry.
I don't know if you're right. I mean, let's take Facebook, for example. First, it was sharing pictures and stories and who knows what. And then it became selling your existence to advertisers. So sometimes the downstream value emerges over time. I would only ask if dancing robots could be a thing, not, if we know how to monetize it or productize it or solve some problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're making dance. Which I also thought it was funny that that was like my first intuition to like the first request that I had for the robot was to dance. I thought that was also a really funny thing.
Look, I think that just like people have different gaits, robots should have different gaits. Okay, just imagine that both of us go somewhere, and I have my Optimus Prime, and you have your Optimus Prime. I would expect them not only to be painted differently and wear different clothes, but also walk differently. Okay, gait is just a reduced version of dancing. okay, because it's so yeah, it's custom gate, but it's meaningful custom gate, okay, and it needs to be visually pleasing. But again, the question is whether you care about it if it's far away from you. In other words, if my robot right here were dancing, that'd be fun. Watching your robot dance, it's like watching a movie. It's not the same thing. And I don't know. The question is whether that fits into the general direction we're going in. Because the question is dancing robots as a service or robotic dance moves as a service.
Did anybody else get their robots to do instructions from their computer yet?
We You mean in the new system? Because in the old system, of course, we did.
Yeah, I was saying with the Tumblr. I think Eric, you had mentioned you set it up. Did it work?
No, not yet. I have now I think the software side of the Tumblr working, and missing the registration. I haven't done it at this point.
Oh, okay. Well, let me know if you get stuck. I'm happy to hop on a call and like walk through it.
We had the discussion of doing a video like in the weekly to have maybe something that maybe rehearsed first, okay? That we had something lasting.
Yeah, it's probably a good
So,
idea.
Yeah,
so that we can.
the video of me and Rafa is, I don't think it's that in good for an instruction as an instruction video.
There is one thing, Niraj, the question is that I'm working with the S3, not connected to the Tumblr for now. So I installed the software and so on. And sorry, I haven't worked for a few days on that. Yeah, trying to remember. I think I haven't done the registration yet because I haven't confirmed that the whole software is working. Do you know whether the software will refuse to work if it's not connected to the full Tumblr? Or it should
Um,
supposedly work?
well, do you have the firmware installed on? So, do you have the Tumblr and the firmware like already like set up?
It depends what you mean. I have a Tumblr, the original Tumblr available, and I have an S3 board with the ESP32 version of the code. Okay?
So
Yeah,
you're
so the
missing the
latest
PCB.
firmware, the repo should be the one that could be used. That should work.
Yeah.
So what I didn't try yet to connect the S3 to the Tumblr because we have to take it apart basically. Okay, and it turns out that one of my daughter wants to play with the Tumblr as well. Okay? So that's why I don't take it apart yet. And so I suppose that I could install the software on the S3 and up to registration, so it would be registering a fake rover, but that's what I intended to do. But I couldn't after installing the software on the S3 and monitoring the output. It's supposed to tell us a few log outputs, and I don't get them. Okay, so that's why I'm wondering whether the software is just stuck, waiting for some patches to be ready before going forward, stuff like that. Um, Not sure about that. Okay, this is where I am at basically. So my
Yeah,
question is
if we
whether
could,
the yeah.
yeah, if there is enough time, then like we could just port the self balancing code to the SP32 S3, and then yeah, your daughter could also play, and then you could also experiment at the same time. But yeah, that self-balancing code needs to be put. But the hardware is ready. It's just the firmware and the PID tuning that needs to be done.
So, do you know whether the S3 is supposed to work with the software without being connected to the tumbler, or is it required to be connected to the
No, the
tumbler?
tumbler is not needed. Basically,
Okay.
if you could just check if the blue light and red lights are blinking, then basically you know if it's connecting to the Wi-Fi. But to see the movement, you might need to connect the tumbler. So
That's
basically,
of course okay, but it's just that I don't get even the blue. I saw in the code that the blue should be blinking, but it doesn't. Okay. So I know the board is
uh,
valid because I use different
yeah, so
code
you have
as
to
well.
update. Yeah, you have to update the firmware with the Wi-Fi credentials. Maybe that's why it's not connecting. Yeah, so there is a way to update the Wi-Fi credentials via Bluetooth, but that is also not done.
But
So like, so basically, every time everybody flashes the firmware, they have to change the Wi-Fi credentials, which is hard
Mhm.
coded right now.
They are hard coded, and so I modified all that, right? Okay. So it connects to the Wi-Fi, but the code doesn't blink, doesn't do the blue. I saw in the code that to tell visually that the board is connected, it will blink the blue LED, right? And so I see it's connected to the Wi-Fi because I can connect to it with the telnet, basically. But the blue LED doesn't blink.
Does it
So
turn purple, some purple color or green color?
no,
Does it blink red in the beginning?
red, yes, yes, the
But
red,
it's
yes,
not connected.
but
Okay,
not the
so
blue.
basically, if you're trying to connect it to a 5 gigahertz network, it will not work because the ESP32S3 only has 2.4 gigahertz.
It's a 2.4.
Yeah, it's only 2.4.
Yes, and I'm connecting to 2.4. Yes.
Okay, yeah, then it's difficult to say actually without
It's
actually.
basically I'm using a different code base because I'm trying to isolate the problem. Okay, maybe the board is I just got a board a couple of weeks ago. Maybe they're wrong. Okay, so I used a different code base, completely unrelated. Blink testy, Blinky, such kind of application, and I could connect to the Wi-Fi with different code. Okay, so that's why I'm not sure I narrow down the problem at all. Okay, just I'm just wondering whether the board doesn't need to be connected to the tumbler to set something. Okay, that will just let the software go. I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah, but
sorry.
yeah, the
Back to your
Wi-Fi could be tested without the board. It should be testable directly without the board.
okay, okay. So sorry, Rafa. Back to your original question. No, I don't have it registered yet.
All good. Let me. So usually, the two gates that I have is one. So the two gates that I have gone through of how I've learned to do it is that you have one gate which is can you get your robot to do commands via MCP? That's like gate number one. And then gate number two is registering on the market. You shouldn't register on the market or anything. I mean, you can go through the registration process if you would like, but in general, I wouldn't go through the registration process until you cross the first gate, which is like being able to call your robot via MCP. Which requires I guess the first gate is it connected to the Wi-Fi, and can you talk to it, or Bluetooth, and can you talk to it via LAN or Bluetooth? Is that fair, Anuraj? I think those are right. Like
Yeah,
it needs to talk to Wi-Fi, and then you need to connect an MCP, and then you register on the market, right? So it's like kind of like the
yeah.
three gates.
But we could try to do it live once.
Yeah, my calendar is flexible. Eric, what time zone are you on?
Right now?
Yeah.
Sorry. What time zone? Okay. It's Tokyo.
Oh, you're in Tokyo? Okay, so
Mm.
morning. So our morning. Anuraj, when are you? I mean, are you still in? You're still in India, right?
Yes, I'm still here, and I reach on Saturday, and then yeah, I'm free starting Sunday.
All right. Well, Eric, would you rather do this like on a weekend, like on Sunday, or would you rather do this like during the weekday, like in the afternoon, Tokyo time?
On the week, is
During the
possible.
week, or
Yes.
during the week. Yeah. How about
Yes.
we do a working session next Tuesday, next Tuesday morning? So that your afternoon. So next Tuesday, your afternoon.
Mhm.
I don't know what time. What time is it in Tokyo now?
It's almost 2 p.m.
2
But
p.m.
which is second, what are the requirements for the session? I guess we need something that where the software works basically, right? And for me, it doesn't work yet.
Well, we can troubleshoot it in person. Like you can kind of like share your Claude code, and like Anuraj and I, like Anuraj specifically has gone through this experience a couple times, so he can probably help you the most. But I'd like to listen in because I'd like to continue learning about like the different type of troubleshooting and edge cases and like different approaches to getting the software configured. I don't know if anybody else wants to join, but we can. I assume it'll be messy, right? Like we're gonna be like, oh, where's the code, and here's like
But
type of
then,
stuff.
then why not next Thursday basically? Because everyone has already the slots, and maybe if someone is
Yeah.
ready, I know that. Yeah. Venkatesh has maybe your boats are getting ready soon. Yeah, I don't remember something was broken or something for Venkat, but yeah, maybe this easy option as well.
Just a quick update on some networking that I'm doing. So Venkat, I wanted to ask you, Amber or Botao reached out in the protocols for business catch up or on Monday, and they said that they used to work at DJI and they're interested in doing um, an academic paper on robot human interaction protocols, and that they are in the Santa Fe Institute summer program. Um, I was wondering, have you met with them before? Do you know? Have you chatted with
Yeah,
them?
he was one of the 2024 grantees.
Mm,
I know him quite well. He's like kind of all over the place and super energetic, but uh, he's basically off on his own kind of like weird artistic quests and stuff. So don't expect he'll flake basically. So if he picks up on something you guys are doing and runs with it and does something good might come out of it. But if you ask him to commit to doing something like in collaboration and expect it to work, chances are he'll flake. Like he's so yeah, if he wants to write
yeah,
a
yeah,
paper, let
yeah,
him write a paper, but don't expect to get anything from it. If something
yeah,
good
yeah.
comes of the paper, that's fine. But yeah, if you have like some problem you want to solve with the marketplace of robots, and he eagerly commits to say, "Oh yeah, I can work at that." chances are he'll flake on that. So just
Yeah,
be wary. But he's a nice guy. He's super creative and smart, very, very quick on
excellent.
picking up all sorts of stuff. But fundamentally, he's an artist and thinks like an artist on his own.
Awesome. Okay, that's great. Yeah, I'm gonna chat with them, and I'm also gonna see if I can get some introductions to other robotics networks. They're also based in London. So Anuraj, if you and or I go to London at any point to talk to RoboMates, we can also catch up and grab lunch with them. Um, I
Yeah.
invited I invited them to this catch up session, but I think it's too early for them because it's an hour earlier, so it's like at 5:30 a.m.
Yeah,
And
I had a chat with the guy. So basically, they are just trying to. So they are doing a lot of manual assembly in their workshop. So I got one RoboMates in the first batch, and I think the demand surged a bit for the second batch. So they have been busy. But yeah, he
great.
told me he'll try to get back to us.
Okay. Um, I'm gonna start cold emailing robot companies with the end objective of expanding my own network of robotics people, and also see if people are willing to either donate or sell us robots at cost. um, to add to the prototyping R&D garage. So stay tuned on that. I don't have a garage, but maybe some of you do have garages, so I might send some robots to you if I succeed at getting some more robots. The idea being to slowly build an inventory of different types of robots that we can put on the marketplace for different services, and experiment with also understanding what the adapter process would look like, because all the robots have slightly different like SDKs and APIs and firmware and capabilities and so on. So similar to how the Tumblr, like you have a lot of configuration like options, all these other robots, like I'm sure will have their own like affordances. So short-term plan is to get exposure to those different affordances and try to figure out what you would hire different robots for, which is surprisingly not as obvious as I would have expected. But I'm also meeting with some engineering firms to do the other side of the research. So talking to robot firms to talk about what they sell and see if I can get robots, and then talk to engineering firms, asking them why they hire robots and how they hire robots to understand the supply chain from the other side. So that's on my list for the next couple of months.
I was wondering, have you reached out to your local maker spaces at all?
It's on my list to do. I'm trying to figure out who is doing robot maker spaces. The majority of spaces in Berlin so far that I've run into are not doing robots. They're doing either welding or woodworking. So I haven't found the robotic spaces yet.
Okay, because if I think about who is messing with robots locally, at least where I am in Kitchener-Waterloo, Ontario, our local makerspace Quartz Lab, and also in Toronto, like, was it Hack Lab TO? It's not like everyone's doing robots, but there's maybe like 2 or 3 people in the
Yeah.
makerspace who are into robots, something like that.
Yeah, it's early. It's interesting because I thought robots would be more common, but they are not that common.
So
So
on the makerspaces front, I visited one with a guy who used to join these calls, Yasha Wilcox. He's based in the Bay Area, and the makerspace he took me to in Berkeley is one of the biggest. It has like a really huge robotics scene, lots and lots of makers. So I suspect there's some sort of like long tail effect here where the top 2 or 3, robotics tech hotspots, definitely Bay Area is one of them, are probably worth tapping into. But the long tail is probably going to be like low yield. So if you're going to go after maker spaces, I would go after like, find the top 10 cities and which ones are near you or you visit often, and then go after them, because they do have yeah, people working on interesting and kind of serious robot startups and things. So they have good networks, I think. So, yeah. But Yasha has been kind of like out of contact with this group for, I think, a year. So we'll have to get back in touch with him.
Yeah.
Rafa seems frozen on my end.
I
at least.
have a suggestion,
I'm here.
Rafa.
Yeah.
We can't respond.
Yeah. Am I here?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Okay. So, yeah, we can hear you and see you moving. You're talking to various robot manufacturers, and one of the questions we need to ask is what can we give them except feeling good? And I can imagine that different robots have different, let's call them natural dances. So we can help them perhaps with advertising. Okay. I mean, if you go into this dancing direction, okay, so different robots have different natural dances, we could showcase it. And, commercial companies are always looking for ways to differentiate themselves.
Yeah, I think
So,
I think that's interesting. I think the thing that I need to figure out is when I do the cold call, I need to make ourselves like legible to them. So like I'm sure that they have random like makers or whatnot reach out to them on an ongoing basis. So I need something that I haven't done. So I have a target list of robotic companies to call, but I need a narrative that says like this is who I am, and like what like this is why I'm coming to talk to you, and that I don't. And like you said, curiosity like gets you in the door. I think I'll get a response if I'm just like, oh, I'm super enthusiastic about robots. But I think if I want my long-term goal about getting them to donate robots or partner with us and do like a bit of R&D on like agent robot like interactions or whatnot, for like to get us to Mars. um, I think we need a type of like compelling, we need a sales story. Like I need a story to convince them to that we are honest, intentional, like ambitious people, even if we're hobbyists, right? Like and there is something with regards to providing services to them, but I'm not too worried about that. I think that's interesting. I think more interesting to them is, will my work make their product better? So like if they gave me a robot, what's the probability that I will come up with a feature that they can integrate into their product? And I think if I tell a good story about that, they will like R&D, like robotics companies will like help us because we won't be wasting their time, right? We'll become like I can become leverage for them, which I think is what most robotics companies want. They don't want distractions, right? They want product improvement.
well, first of all, there's a IP issue. If you make an improvement, does the improvement even belong to them? They need to worry about that. Forget about are you making improvements on their time scale and so on. So the benefit of doing the marketing side is that it can move at a different pace than the R&D side. But why do you want them to donate robots if our business is renting robots? We don't want them to donate a robot. We want them to give us a robot so we can uh, give that robot to other people to play with, as many as possible other people to play
Yeah.
with. In fact, maybe they could even use this service as a demo. When you buy a car, you take it for a test drive. But with a robot, maybe you rent out a test drive, and then there's outsourcing of the costs
Yeah.
and control of the process, and a completely different way to reach potential partners, customers. I mean,
Yeah.
The legibility issue is not just an industry. So I have approached occasionally some labs at the universities. So at least I found it difficult to get taken seriously, right? So kind of comes off as a crackpot project if I'm like approaching as a single researcher myself. So it's not just industry issue. But right now, I think in the last 2 3 months, at least I'm getting more response if I show them the stuff we have done. But like I think like we need some more maturity in our stack to be like make it more approachable.
Yeah. Again, we don't have to do this, but I personally want more complicated robot. I want to learn how to connect and how to like hire more complicated robots. I think that's where the real learning for me, like that's where the attraction to me is. And unfortunately, robots are expensive, surprisingly.
They're
yeah,
cheaper
but
now, much cheaper
They're
now.
they're much cheaper now. I agree, and I think the cost of robots is definitely coming down, but I think they're going to plateau at the same price of an e-bike, which is $3,000. That's my prediction. So like an industrial robot, like the for like a proper drone that can be used for construction. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think it'll go lower than $3,000 because that's like the price of an e-bike that like an Uber delivery person uses.
do you need physical access to the robot?
Um, I don't know. So I don't know. I think that it would be. I don't know. I haven't thought about that. I think it would be. I imagine that I would, but now that you asked that question, I'm not 100% sure. I need the SDK and I need the robot connected, but I don't, and I need it maybe with its wings clipped, right? Um, because you don't want to accidentally ruin
That's
someone's garage. But I'm at least for testing, like some initial testing and connections. But um, yeah, the thing is, you're dealing with something physical, right? Like you are.
Yeah, but that's definitely a selling point. Everybody else calls them up and asks them to donate a robot. You're calling up and just asking them to allow you remote control of the robot.
I don't know.
Easy.
Sounds pretty crackpotty if I were to test.
Yeah, that's true actually.
Look.
Yeah,
Don't give me a robot. Just give me digital access to your robot. No, but in all seriousness, I do like. Um, it's sufficient to have also like a broken robot, right? Like because what I want is like almost like the chip and the firmware and the simulation, or at least in this initial phase. And some of the companies do offer simulation for testing and such.
Yeah, but like what's they will just ask, right? At least the labs I went to, they asked like how can we publish? So that's the currency that runs there. So it's generally like if you go to industry, they would want something. If you go to university lab, they would want papers. So nobody just
Yeah.
rents.
Anyways, I got to work on the pitch.
Okay, I have to jump out soon. So we want to discuss something more.
I had the only last question I had is, I mean, I can share the pitch with you guys. I know we had talked about like, um, we had a meeting in Protocols for Business, and Andre, a different Protocols for Business person from Protocol Institute, had connections to. Let me see what he said. He said he has. Let me just. Um, he has some useful connections in Ottawa. Um, the institutional position is Connected Vehicles Innovation Center in University of Ottawa. So this is Andre. The funding mechanics. And then Andre was talking about potentially helping network for us with them, and trying to help out with the project. And we were wondering, and I guess like question for Venkat, like how, like would talking about the robotics group in the context of Protocol Institute make it more legible when we're doing the networking? And I think there's kind of like there's an interest from my side to obviously get funding in robots, but and then downstream from that is, should this interest group of robotics, like, can we talk about it from the Protocol Institute perspective, and would that give us more credibility when we're talking to people externally?
So yeah, since I was involved in starting both this group and the Protocol Institute, I kind of am like agnostic. I see advantages to being on both sides. So like I said in the thread, I'd be, you and Anurag, you do seem to be like moving at a much higher tempo than this group usually does. And I think you're right. That suggests that at least some of the threads here have matured beyond incubation and should go to a higher tempo setting. Protocol Institute, we are just starting. Timber and I are figuring out what we can do and how. We have some funding from EF through the rest of the year, and we have to kind of use that as our bootstrapping launch funding. Next year, it's all up in the air. We have no idea what we'll get from the EF, if anything. Chances are we'll get at least a little amount just to manage the Long Now partnership. So we'll likely be around, but it could be at KTL also. Keep the lights on level. It could be higher. It could be much higher if we are able to attract some sponsors and get some funding. But so we are going to do that. I just started talking to potential partner orgs that might fund PI. But yeah, assuming reasonable case, we should have a pretty credible institution. It has a good pedigree. It has 3 years of history and lots of work done. So it'll be a good calling card. So if you go and say this is the special interest groups in robotics, and this is the YaRG rover project that started with YaRG Collective, but is now in the second phase, trying to do bigger things. I think that's an interesting, high credibility story. The question I think I have for Mayor and Eric is, what kind of is your interest in this? Because there's two things we can do here. One is keep some slower incubation type threads here in YaRG Collective, and basically try to keep both going, or collectively decide that this whole project better not to fragment, and kind of move whatever energy there is to this higher gear, in which case it can go to Protocol Institute and access some more opportunities, because we'll be able to give a little bit of funding and support if it's there. I don't have very strong feelings either way. I do think you can do different interesting things if the project is in the Protocol Institute as opposed to here. So yeah, what do you guys think?
Let me start by saying I find what the Protocol Institute is doing very interesting. I just don't have the bandwidth to do more than glance at it from the corner of my eye. I don't think that we're capable of having two pathways happening in parallel. I think we need to commit to one. I mean, the ideal would be just doing spinouts, but for spinouts, you need people to run, to do the work in the spinout, and we don't have. I'm just looking, the past 5 years, unless you say there's 10 people in the Protocol Institute that really want to do this kind of stuff, and all we need to do is give them a little bit of attention, that'd be one thing. But seeing as how it's not, really a question of choosing one or the other. So I understand the upsides of going with the Protocol Institute. It's just not completely clear to me how the YaRG is going to change. Maybe you could explain that a bit more.
So I think if we reorganize this as a special interest group in PI, what will happen is there will be a mix of people. There will be a few people like Rafa and Anuraj who kind of want to like pursue a more ambitious track with this crypto robotics marketplace. And there will
Hmm.
be many people who are just interested in keeping up with robotics, same as here.
Hmm.
Some things would not change at all. It would be, there would still be weekly meetings exploring like broad robotics things. But this particular thread that wants to launch as a serious activity, that would get support from there. So if you wanted to continue participating at the same casual level, you would just join calls on that Discord instead of this Discord. So I think the participation level will be as open. Um, the vibes could change a little bit because YaRG has the hobbyist vibe, whereas PI will have a little bit more of a professional institute that's trying to raise money kind of vibe. The other thing I wanted to point out is since there's already a bunch of like crossover of some threads with the CADS group that meets Monday morning here, we could pick up some of the more non-rover, non-crypto economic robot threads. We could merge it over there. So there's a couple of different options there. Um, but yeah, if I heard you correctly, I don't think moving location would uh, reduce the ability of low stakes participants to participate. It would just increase the ability of higher stakes participants to do more, right? So it
Well,
would raise the ceiling of participation, but it would keep the floor at the same. So, for example, I will plan to continue participating, but I don't have time and energy to like keep up with Rafa and Anuraj. So I will actually have roughly the same average level of energy that I have had here, which lately has not been great, but in the past I was better.
there's two things I'm missing. One is, going to calls is interesting, but the question is whether the direction and content of one of the calls is going to change. So that is one question. And the second question has more to do with the YA collective. Does this move energy away from the YA collective, which is not exactly a, super high energy place now?
I think, yeah, definitely it will take some energy, and that's kind of what spinouts are, right? You take like an energetic thread and move it elsewhere, and that's I think the natural phase of growth. And then the question becomes, how do you like in the Yak collective? What do you do? Do you concentrate the remaining energy in fewer activities? Do you spin up a new activity to replace the old one? So I have some interest in that because I think I mentioned this in the thread as well. The rover and this marketplace direction are kind of a very interesting vector, but there's a lot more to robotics vectors, right? So one I'm interested in is, for example, elder care and assistive robotics, which doesn't quite fit this marketplace mode. So we could, for example, pivot and keep this track of meetings and focus it in that new direction, right? So a couple of different options there.
I mean, you could also just keep this as like the builder's call, and like whoever wants to join, like more like the project planning call, like can like come in. Yeah, I feel a little bit guilty. I don't mean to split people's attention. I find the project interesting.
No, you shouldn't. I mean, you've come in and injected a lot of
No
good
problem.
energy here, and actually, the reverse is also true. Like we don't want to have your energy and Anuraj's energy spread thin across two groups simply because of wanting to keep those groups, both alive. You sometimes have to make tough choices, and I do think you and Anuraj are like really cranking it out here, and I would hate to see that momentum be lost because we're trying to avoid difficult choices. So yeah, I think, for example, one thing that could happen is we shut down this rover group, keep some of the threads in the CADS group on Monday, and the whole robotics activity goes to Protocol Institute. Another is you and Anuraj go to Protocol Institute SIG, run that with interested people and keep it focused on what you guys are doing. And we keep this one going, but you guys can become casual partial members. And Mayor Eric and I can continue and find new things to do over here. So that would be, we would just treat Anuraj as a graduate of this group, basically. He's graduated out by showing higher energy than the rest of us. But seriously, I mean, this is the whole point. I've worked enough in research orgs that have fucked up by not having the, just not making choices. Like they'll start 10 different projects. They all have some success at incubation stage. And then at the growth stage, you can't fund all 10 projects. You have to pick 2 or 3. They never choose. And then they end up starving all 10 projects. So you don't want that. So here, yeah, I think if I had to pick one thing, one outcome I would like out of wherever this goes, it's to set you and Anuraj up for the maximal chances of success possible, because that's kind of interesting. It's a level up. So I'd like to see what's the best way to do that. And right now, it seems to me that's kind of the minimal definition. It feels like you two should move that thread to Protocol Institute and do something there. But yeah, there's people have creative suggestions. I'm open.
Yeah, I feel
I just want to say, Rafa, you've created hope. It's not that you're interfering. Now we suddenly have a choice that we need to make. If you wouldn't have come, we wouldn't have that choice. So you're part of the solution, not part of the problem. So just want to say that.
It's been fun following along, reading the robotics chat for 4 years, I think, or 3 years, however long it's been. And then finally being like, Cloud Code now lets me do the hard part. It's like Venkat said, around December 25th, there was a change there's a vibe change. I think so. My short-term goal is basically to understand the problem better and get funding to get more robots. So my rule of thumb is I will move wherever the probability of that is higher. Which I think right now my intuition tells me that if I brand this under the Protocol Institute, I think the probability of me being able to get in the door of places and get people to give me money is potentially higher. Venkat, you guys have a legal entity, right, too, that we could put?
Not yet.
Not yet. But,
yeah, so it'll be a few months. We will become a Canadian nonprofit probably. And once we do that, we can accept funding as well as disburse it more easily.
Great.
Like right now, it's a little bit of a mess. If we want to hand money out, it basically has to be routed via the EF. And we cannot accept any money because the EF is not set up to accept inbound money. So yeah, once we set up an entity, we'll have a lot more flexibility. And yes, I do agree with you. I think for the stage of what you're trying to do, yes, being with the Protocol Institute will increase your chances. Um, Tell you what, why don't we try
Let
a
it
couple of
simmer.
like SIG meetings
Yeah.
there and see who shows up and what kind of activity happens. And one thing we could try is for a while we figure this out, we can just have alternate weeks, like more upstream R&D type weeks here at the YaRG Collective with a broader agenda talking about robotics in general. And the other alternate weeks, it will be calls in the, which we already do, by the way. The SIG calls are every other week by default. What do you think of that, Mayor and Eric? And you guys can join the alternating calls as well and see if you like the vibes of that.
What you're saying is, what do they call it on TV? A crossover. To do a few crossover
Yes.
episodes.
Yep.
So I don't understand. Am I from Supergirl or from Flash?
Yeah. And
It
honestly,
has to have.
ultimately, I think,
It has to have a theme. Venkat, I think it's a good idea, providing there's a theme and not just, let's visit each other and see what it's like. I mean, if the
yeah.
theme was protocols for renting out dancing robots, okay, so yeah, I'd
It'll be a
support it.
little broader than that. The way we want to structure the SIGs is a broad interest group. I mean, literally special interest groups. So the theme would be something like robots, not dancing marketplace of robots in particular. So we would want to keep it broad enough, and then this would be a project within that. So I think the test of whether it is a good model is if we try a couple of meetings there and people show up there who wouldn't show up here because they've invested in that community and they're contributing well, that's a win, right? And then they might have crossover interest in this community as well for the different kinds of discussions that happen here.
Yep.
So
I can try to pick this up. I'll talk to Andre and to Amber, who are the two people who reached out to me, said that they were both interested in doing robotics. And then
I wouldn't bet too much on Amber, like I said, but Andre actually
no,
attends the governance chat call here as well. So he's also involved in both communities.
yeah,
He just hasn't been in the YaRG group. But I would want more than that. So if we kick off a robotics SIG, we would announce it in the protocolized newsletter, invite people, see who shows up, and hope more people stick around, cross-promote it
yeah,
with the other SIGs. So it would be more than just a small thing, because if we do it, we should do it in a way that sets it up right.
yeah, and yeah, I might think about handing over the protocols for business. Like, I don't know. I also need to make hard decisions around my own focus on this. So I'll give it some thought, and I'll reach out to all of you with like a proposed plan.
Yeah, and I think if it goes to PI, Anurag should honestly be the one to lead it. He started this whole thread because, again, that's also a hard decision I'm involved in, because it was really good when you picked up the protocols for business thread. So it would be, I wouldn't want internal cannibalization there either.
Yeah, I know. I don't want that either. And like, by the way, like I'm running an AI enablement like consulting project right now. I need to report back on that. So like, there's a lot of work going on. But I guess Anuraj, the question for you is like, would you be open to kind of like, yeah, also growing that? We can also hop on a call and talk about it. I would rather, in my perfect scenario, I would rather be a participant of the Protocol Institute Robotics Interest Group than to. But I want to be I want to work on the project, not on the group, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that is a real condition of a SIG. Like somebody has to actually have the interests of the SIG in mind. So
Yeah.
you and Anurag should talk because if that condition is not met, then the protocol
Then
institute
we
doesn't
stay here.
get like
Yeah.
institutional value out of it. So we do need
That's right.
that, right? But that's a pretty low burden. It's like if you succeed in your project, that's 80% of succeeding as a SIG. So you just have to like broaden your horizon a little bit and develop the SIG context as well as the project. So it's a little bit double duty type of thing, dual purpose vehicle. But yeah, you and Anurag talk it over. And these aren't the only two options. Staying here, going to PI aren't the only options, right? You could potentially just do a completely independent thing. It doesn't have to be one or the other. I haven't heard from Eric though. Before we sign off, it would be good, Eric, if you shared your thoughts.
The thing that I'm very interested in protocols in the beginning, and actually since before the beginning, because I think Venkatesh and I come from something called interaction protocols. That is an old word now. Definitely interested, but the reason why I never joined is because of the time zone, basically. Okay, so that's why for me it was always on the side, and I would prefer. Basically, I'm here. I was here to work on space rovers, basically. Okay, and that's what I intend to do, basically, to focus on that. So on this very interesting activity, I don't intend to take part more than configuring rover, doing testing, something like that. That's fun and interesting small projects for practice. Okay? Yeah, that's about it. So there is also something else as well that happened. Okay, is that it turns out that I think Anuraj, you shared the project from the JAXA, the Japanese institute on the moon rovers. That will do some experiments like using some kind of laser to melt regolith to see whether we can make bricks and so on. Okay. In fact, I'm part of that project. Okay. So I think I'm going just to focus on that basically. So actually make space rovers basically, as we wanted to do at the beginning.
Okay, I think in that case, actually, this proposal, the pattern I'm proposing, alternating weeks, general broad robotics call here at this time usual, and then you guys try a pilot phase of a SIG robotics group in PI that's focused on this project and kind of more protocolish applications. And let's kind of see how it works for a while. And if it turns out there isn't enough critical mass on one side or the other, we can revisit the question. All right. So maybe you and Anuraj can talk more and figure things out, like how ambitious you guys are and what you want to do.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a little bit scary to want to take the plunge. Yeah.
I mean, it always is, right? But yeah, I think you guys are onto something. There's good energy. Nobody else is doing it. There's lots of things going for this vector, and one way or the other, you learn something very interesting, and we'll all kind of like have a good experiment to learn from. So yeah, let's try and make this work. It'll be interesting.
Okay. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Right.